Have you ever watched someone and felt like you were witnessing a masterclass in performance art rather than a real person? Most of the world sees a duchess, a woman who climbed the steep mountain of Hollywood and the even steeper cliffs of the British monarchy. But if you look through the eyes of investigative journalists like Tom Bower or critics like Piers Morgan, a different image begins to take shape. It's the image of a carefully constructed brand built on a foundation of secrets that go back much further than anyone realized. Today, we're digging into the files that most journalists were too afraid to touch. We're looking at 15 distinct moments where the mask didn't just slip, it fell off completely. Her legal team would probably love for you to stop watching right now. But if you want to understand the real story behind the headlines, you need to stay until the very end, especially for Secret 15, because that one changes the entire narrative of the royal family as we know it. Before the tiaras, before the global fame, and even before the show Suits, Meghan Markle was just another actress in Los Angeles looking for a break. She needed a job, and she needed it badly enough to do something most professionals would find unthinkable. In 2004, she walked into an audition for a show called Century City. It was a standard enough setup until the casting directors asked the one question every serious actor has to answer. Are you a member of the SAG union? It's the golden ticket in Hollywood. Without that card, you aren't supposed to be in the room. Meghan looked them in the eye and said yes. She told them she was a member in good standing. The truth? She didn't have a card. She wasn't a member. She had completely fabricated her credentials to get the role. She got the job, of course, and because of the way the industry works, the production company was legally forced to help her join the union after the fact. She lied, she got caught, and the system actually rewarded her for it. This might seem like a small detail from 20 years ago, but Piers Morgan has argued for years that this moment is the blueprint. It shows a pattern of using whatever means necessary to get into the room, even if those means involve a total disregard for the truth. If the very first step of her career was built on a lie, it forces us to wonder what else was a means to an end. But the union card wasn't the only thing she reinvented during those early years. To understand the woman the world knows today, we have to talk about the girl who disappeared. Her legal birth name isn't actually Meghan, it's Rachel. Rachel Meghan Markle. Now, plenty of actors use stage names, but this feels different. Her school friends knew her as Rachel. Her early acting credits listed her as Rachel. Even her most famous character on Suits was named Rachel. It's almost as if she was living two lives simultaneously. Tom Bower's research suggests that the switch to Meghan was a calculated branding move. Rachel felt ordinary. Rachel felt like a girl from the suburbs. Meghan felt unique. It felt like someone the world would watch. She didn't just change her personality for the cameras. She changed her identity because Rachel Markle could never become a duchess, but Meghan could. It's the first sign of a woman who views her life as a production to be edited and refined for maximum impact. She scrubbed the ordinary parts of her past to make room for the royal future she was already envisioning. But reinventing her identity was just the beginning. To make the Duchess narrative work, she had to rewrite her entire childhood. And that meant erasing the man who made it all possible. The story Meghan sold to the world was irresistible. She was the brave, mixed-race girl from humble beginnings, raised by a devoted single mother, struggling through a brutal industry with nothing but raw talent. It's a classic Hollywood underdog story. The problem is the facts tell a completely different tale. Thomas Markle wasn't an absent figure. He was her primary caregiver from the age of 9. He was a highly respected lighting director for major shows like General Hospital. Meghan didn't struggle into the industry from the outside. She grew up on those sets. She was there every single day after school for a decade, surrounded by the best directors and producers in the business. Her father paid for everything. He funded her expensive education at Immaculate Heart, a private Catholic school that was far from humble. He paid for her acting lessons and used his connections to get her that first appearance on General Hospital. Court documents have since revealed letters between them showing a level of closeness and communication that she has never publicly admitted to. Yet, the moment Thomas Markle stopped being a useful part of her public image, specifically when he became a PR liability before the wedding, she cut him off overnight. She erased the man who built her career because he didn't fit the new Duchess aesthetic. And what happened next would shock even her closest supporters. Once is an accident. Twice is a coincidence, but 7 times, that's a strategy. Piers Morgan once claimed on air that Meghan Markle has never had an original thought in her life. It was a harsh statement that sparked immediate backlash, but the evidence he produced was hard to ignore. Let's look at the receipts. In 2015, she stood before the United Nations and gave a moving speech about gender equality. It was widely praised until people realized it was almost a word-for-word copy of a 1951 speech by Eleanor Roosevelt. She changed one word, peace became equality, and took the credit. This wasn't an isolated incident. Her Archetypes podcast name was strikingly similar to an existing book by Caroline Myss. Her Netflix project Pearl was accused of mirroring a series of books by a British author. Even her children's book, The Bench, faced immediate questions about its originality. From her cooking show format to the very aesthetic of her blog, The Tig, there is a persistent trail of borrowed ideas. It suggests a woman who is expert at curating other people's brilliance and presenting it as her own. She wasn't just stealing words, though. She was scouting for a very specific type of life, and she knew exactly where to find it. Meghan looked the world in the eye during that famous engagement interview and said she barely knew who Prince Harry was. She called it a blind date and claimed her only question was, "Is he nice?" It's a lovely romantic story, but the paper trail suggests it's a total fabrication. There are photos of a teenage Meghan grinning outside Buckingham Palace. Friends from her school days described her as being obsessed with British culture and specifically the royal family. One friend even reported that she kept a biography of Princess Diana by her bedside. By the time she met Harry, she was already deeply embedded in the social circles of Soho House, the exact same circles Harry and his closest friends frequented. Tom Bower's research indicates she was actively hunting for a high-profile man in England from 2013 onwards, right as her first marriage was ending. She didn't stumble into a prince. She researched him, targeted the social clubs he visited, and positioned herself perfectly. Piers Morgan has called it the greatest long game in modern history. She got the prince, but the people who actually had to work for her once she entered the palace got something else entirely. The public version of Meghan is all about kindness and compassion. She gives speeches about empathy and builds her entire brand around lighting the way. But behind the scenes, a different title emerged. The Hollywood Reporter famously called her a dictator in high heels. In 2025, reports surfaced that former staffers at Archewell were seeking professional therapy just to recover from the trauma of working under her. This isn't just one disgruntled employee. Over a dozen high-level staffers have left her employment since 2020. One particularly telling account came from a British Airways staff member. They described a flight where Meghan's demeanor shifted instantly depending on whether Harry was within earshot. When he was gone, the compassionate Duchess disappeared, replaced by someone cold and demanding. Most shockingly, the staff member noted a complete lack of visible connection between Meghan and baby Archie during the flight. It's a jarring contrast to the public image of the doting mother. This pattern of behavior is what led to the internal palace investigations that were ultimately buried. But the mask didn't just slip in private, it shattered on the world's biggest stage. Everyone remembers the Oprah interview. 17 million people watched as Meghan cried and described a spectacle of a wedding, claiming they had actually married in secret 3 days prior in their backyard. It was a powerful, emotional moment that painted the royal family as cold and uncaring, except it wasn't true. The Archbishop of Canterbury himself had to step forward and clarify that no legal ceremony took place in that garden. It was just a private conversation dramatically reframed for maximum emotional impact on television. Then there was the claim about Archie being denied a title because of his race. In reality, there are established rules from 1917 that dictate which grandchildren receive titles, and those rules applied to Archie exactly as they applied to everyone else. Meghan knew these rules, yet she chose to imply a much darker motivation. This interview was the moment Piers Morgan walked off the set of Good Morning Britain because he refused to believe the narrative being sold. He was dragged through the press for it. But as the facts came out, many began to see that his skepticism was rooted in the evidence, and what happened to her digital past during this time is even more suspicious. In 2017, something strange happened. Meghan's lifestyle blog, The Tag, vanished. Hundreds of posts, recipes, and personal opinions were deleted overnight. For years, she had used that blog to share her candid thoughts on everything from fashion to her personal ambitions. It was a genuine window into who she was before she became the Duchess. When web archives managed to recover some of the deleted content, they found exactly what you might expect: evidence of a woman who was deeply fascinated by the royal family and extremely calculated about her rise to fame. The post reportedly showed a version of Meghan that was far more openly ambitious than her royal persona allowed. By deleting the blog, she was attempting to burn the bridge to her old life so no one could see the steps she took to get across. But while she was scrubbing her digital past, she was also making very public moves that the palace found deeply concerning. One of those moves was a $500,000 baby shower in New York City. The palace reportedly advised strongly against the New York baby shower. No senior royal had ever done anything like it. It was seen as a celebrity move, not a royal one. When you look at the guest list, it becomes clear why. Almost every person in attendance had something to sell. Serena Williams was promoting her fashion line. Misha Nonu was relaunching her brand, and other guests had television promotions running simultaneously. Piers called it what it was: a coordinated marketing festival dressed up as a celebration of new life. It was a PR stunt designed to solidify her power base in America, using the royal brand as the ultimate hook. Tom Bower's research suggests this was the moment the palace truly realized she was never going to play by the rules of the institution. She was building a rival court, and she was using the most private moments of her life to do it. But she wasn't just using her friends. She was using her own history, too. The story she told of the struggling actress was the centerpiece of her brand. But when you look at the facts, she didn't come from nothing. She came from everything Hollywood could offer. Her father wasn't just a lighting director. He was an Emmy-winning professional who ensured his daughter had every advantage. She attended the most elite schools and was comfortable on professional sets before she could even drive. Her struggle was a narrative choice, a way to make her eventual success seem more miraculous and her relatability more believable. It's a pattern we see over and over. The facts are reshaped to fit the story. Whether it's her childhood, her career, or her relationships, nothing is left to chance. Every detail is curated to project an image of a woman who overcame the odds, even when those odds were heavily stacked in her favor from day one. And speaking of relationships, there is one man her team has worked incredibly hard to keep out of the headlines. Before the prince, there was the chef. Corey Vitello was a high-profile celebrity chef in Toronto, and he and Meghan were in a serious, committed relationship for almost 2 years. They lived together and were, by all accounts, heading toward a permanent future. Their relationship officially ended in May 2016. Her blind date with Harry happened just a few weeks later. The timeline is uncomfortably tight, leading many, including Piers, to question exactly when her focus shifted. Sources in the Toronto social scene have suggested that Corey was completely blindsided by the breakup. He has remained silent for 10 years, never speaking a word to the press, which in itself is telling. He was the life she had built in Canada, the life she was leading while she was reportedly hunting for a way into the British elite. When the bigger fish was caught, the old life was discarded without a second thought. But discarding people is one thing. Discarding the work you were paid millions for is another. Let's talk about that $18 million Spotify deal. It was supposed to be the jewel in the crown of their post-royal career. But after just one season, Spotify pulled the plug. One of the top executives at the company even called them grifters on his own podcast. Why? Because reports surfaced that Meghan wasn't even doing the work. Multiple sources revealed that for the academic or expert guests on her podcast, Meghan wasn't actually the one conducting the interviews. Staff members would do the heavy lifting, interviewing the scholars and experts, and then Meghan's voice would be edited and spliced in later to make it sound like she was the one having the deep intellectual conversation. She showed up for the big-nom celebrities, the ones who could help her brand, but she couldn't be bothered with the rest. It was a masterclass in getting paid for work you didn't do, and it showed a fundamental lack of respect for the creative process. But if you think that's scandalous, there's a piece of film history she would give anything for you to never see. In 2008, long before she was a duchess, Meghan appeared in the pilot of the 90210 reboot. It was a tiny role she wasn't even credited by name. The script simply called her Hot Girl. The scene itself was explicit enough that it caused massive embarrassment for the palace when it resurfaced. It showed a version of Meghan that was light years away from the refined, dignified image she spent years building. The contrast between that scene and the woman who now gives speeches about the sanctity of womanhood is jarring. She has never acknowledged it, never addressed it, and has tried to bury it under a mountain of PR. But it exists as a reminder that the Duchess is a character she stepped into, not who she has always been. It's a performance. And that brings us to the biggest secret of all, the one that people are still whispering about today. We have to talk about the pregnancy. This is the topic that has started more arguments than any other, and it's the one that critics like Piers have addressed with extreme caution. We want to be clear. We are laying out the observations made by others, not making a definitive claim. But the questions surrounding the birth of Archie remain one of the most polarizing mysteries in modern royal history. It started with the moon bump. Women who had been through pregnancies themselves began pointing out inconsistencies in the size and shape of Meghan's bump between public appearances. Photos surfaced of her squatting and bending with a level of physical ease that left many mothers puzzled. Then there was the birth itself. Every royal birth for 1,000 years has followed a specific protocol. There is a medical team named a hospital location confirmed and an official document signed by doctors. With Archie, none of that happened. The birth was shrouded in total secrecy. No doctors were named, no signatures were provided, and the official announcement was handled in a way that broke every established rule. The secrecy wasn't just about privacy. It felt like a deliberate avoidance of the usual verification process. Even Tom Bauer has noted these unexplained gaps in his research. Whether the rumors of a surrogate are true or not, the fact remains that the royal family has never faced this level of skepticism regarding a birth. The world is still asking questions, and the silence from the Sussex camp is the only answer we've ever received. If you've made it this far, you've seen the pattern. From the very first lie about a union card to the meticulously edited podcast interviews and the rewritten childhood, the story of Meghan Markle is a story of curation. It's the story of a woman who understands the power of a narrative and isn't afraid to reshape reality to fit it. Whether you see her as a victim of a cold institution or a master of global branding, one thing is certain: we are only seeing what she wants us to see. But as the receipts continue to surface and the journalists continue to dig, the House of Cards is starting to look a little shaky. If you want to stay ahead of the next big revelation, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. We are just getting started on these royal files, and what we have coming next makes this look like an introduction. There are 2 videos on your screen right now that dive even deeper into these secrets. Choose one and let's keep